Morning. Today I want to talk about how can you get the most benefit for your client in the play therapy and expressive arts therapy process. So how do you maximize their experience and their outcomes in the treatment process? And in my opinion, the way that you can maximize the outcome when you are working with children and adolescents is having a really intentional plan for integrating their parents or their caregivers. So just as an FYI, when I say parents, it's for me that's interchangeable with caregivers. Any adult in the life of the child that is helping that child to make changes in their life or to caregiving and really has that power to bring about changes in the child's life and to make things happen, so to speak. So, that is what I want to talk about today. How can you get the most benefit for your clients, or how do you help them get the most benefit out of their treatment? And one of the things that I always say to people that I supervise, any of my supervision and consultation groups that I do or one-on-one, I say this in trainings all the time. One of the things that I say to parents and the child, depending on the age, is my job is to work myself out of a job. And what I mean by that is my job is to help you get everything you need out of the treatment process to figure out what's going on and to get better so that you don't need to come anymore. That's the goal. The goal is you're doing so well that you don't need to come anymore. And in my mind, that means you don't even need to come back, that you have all the skills that you need, everything that you need in order to be successful in life. That's To me, that's the goal. That's the goal for all of us as mental health professionals is how do we work ourselves out of a job, which means we need to think about the treatment process from the beginning to the end. And we're conceptualizing what is it going to take in order to help my client overcome and change whatever difficulties are going on in their life so that they can successfully transition out of the treatment process and go on and live that resilient life that they need to live and that they want to live. So how do we do that in play therapy? Because the child or the adolescent is the identified patient, so to speak. So if the child is coming in, how do we help that child get the most benefit? And to me, that means we need to include the parents. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. If you're joining me live, I would love to know who's here. Go ahead and post your name in the comments. If you're watching on the replay, go ahead and post your name in the comments. Also, I'd love to know where you're from, what population that you work with, um, what play therapy and expressive arts modality you like to use. Go ahead and post that in the comments and let's get started. So I'm Kathy Spooner. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, a registered play therapist supervisor here in the United States, and I have been in the child and adolescent mental health field for 30 years. And I love using play therapy and expressive arts with children because I find that it is, in my opinion, the most effective way to help them engage in the change process. And it really meets them where they are and their developmental needs in the treatment process. And now, after 30 years, my goal is really to help you as a child and adolescent therapist using play therapy and expressive arts. My goal is to help you tap into your superpowers so that you can bring about help your client make those changes in their lives and make a difference in the lives of the children, adolescents, and families in your community. And to me, we can change communities one therapist at a time. That's really how I think about it. Healthy communities are made up of healthy families, and being able to make a difference in the lives of a child and an adolescent is really, really deep and amazing work. And so that's my goal, to help you do that. I provide trainings, consultations, supervision using play therapy and expressive arts. And that has really been my professional passion for, I would say, 40 years now, because prior to being in the mental health field, I was in the special education field. So let's get started. All righty. So, how can parents maximize treatment outcomes? And to me, parents maximize treatment outcomes because they're the change agents. They have the power and the ability to create shifts within your child's life. So the younger the child, the more likely that the parent is really going to need to be actively involved in the change process. As they get older and they're nearing launching from their parents' home, it begins to we begin to turn over the reins, so to speak, more and more as parents to our budding young adult child. Even then, though, like, I have young adult kids that I still am actively involved in their lives, helping them when they need some support, navigating difficult and challenging issues. So I think we still play a role as parents in the lives of our children. It just changes and looks a little different depending on the phase of life that they're in. And as a play therapist, though, and what one of my goals then is to make sure that parent-child relationship is intact, so that the parents can use their I'm sorry, so the child can use their parents to help them when they need it. And even sometimes in the play therapy and expressive arts, when we're working field and we're working with children and adolescents and their parents, sometimes we can have parents that are maybe struggling a little bit what to do, and maybe change for them is hard. I think it's really important for us as mental health professionals to have uh, an idea of what our expectations are in the treatment process, because sometimes we need to do a little challenging to help parents make that shift. Because if you've been in the field for any length of time, you know that unless that parent makes the shift, that system is not really going to make the shift. So they're a really important part of the treatment process. Hello there. So glad you could join. So where are you? I'm hoping I pronounce your name right, YL. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. So where are you joining us from? Feel free to join in the conversation. I would love to hear about the work that you're doing with parents. Um, here's the thing. Here's one of the things that I learned, and this probably is the thing that solidified this shift for me. And it probably happened I think it was about 15 years ago. I had a young child, 5 years old, and I was using child-centered play therapy, using trying to figure out what was going on. He was coming in for some behavior problems, and grandparent was providing the childcare. Mom was a single mom and working full time, although there was a live-in boyfriend in the home too, kind of functioning in that step parenting role. And what I was finding is when grandma would bring him, or in between sessions, she would give me a phone call and let me know some things going on. And then I began to realize, oh, I really need to talk with mom. I probably need to have a conversation. And I could not get her to come in. I tried week after week after week, and then grandma was telling me all of the problems going on, and I was seeing some things in the playroom, and I was a little concerned they weren't gonna there wasn't gonna be very much progress being made. So I had a really hard time getting mom to come in. The therapy process wasn't making the gains that I knew that it needed to be made. So I ended up having to have a conversation on the phone with grandma, and I had to really hold some therapeutic boundaries, and grandma ended up having conversations with mom. So finally I got mom to come in, but even then it was me chasing her to come in, and we never really made very good progress in that treatment. And they ended up dropping out. And so when things like that happen, I like to take a step back and kind of break it down and think about, what happened in this process? Because I was frustrated. And so I thought, well, I am in control of me. That's what I have control over. And I was frustrated with the treatment process. I was frustrated with the parent. And so when I took a step back and I really looked at it and I thought, well, I didn't really communicate my expectations. I made a lot of assumptions about what the parent would do. And I hadn't really communicated that to grandma or to parent about what this change process involves. And I think in the mental health field, oftentimes because we're in it all the time, we don't always recognize that this is very different for clients coming in. This isn't their mindset. They don't know how it works. They need us to explain how it's going to work. And if we're going to be explaining to them how it works, then I think it's really important for us as therapists to have an idea of what are my expectations? How do I work as a therapist? And if I'm working with children and adolescents, then I am a firm believer that we need to have a set of expectations, a plan, a framework for what the role of parents are going to be in the treatment process. And in my opinion, and over the last, I would even say, I would count in my time in the special education field, just working with parents and families in different capacities. One of the things that I noticed over those decades is when parents were more actively involved, their child made much more progress. And for a variety of reasons, some parents aren't as actively involved for they have things that they're working through, or they have their own challenges, or life is challenging. I think though the thing that we have to think about is that if we are understanding that parents are the therapeutic agents of change, and then we will come up with a more intentional plan for incorporating them as the change agents. One of the things that I've heard in the play therapy arena, and I believe this is true, that the play process is the therapeutic agent of change. The therapist is the therapeutic agent of change. And I believe that to be true. I think, though, one of the things that I've noticed in the play therapy arena over the last 30 years, I've noticed that in our profession, we don't necessarily think about, well, parents are the therapeutic agents of change. And if I believe that parents are the therapeutic agents of change, then what am I doing and how am I incorporating them into the change process? So, what is a therapeutic agent of change? A therapeutic agent of change is and the way I think about it for parents as therapeutic agents of change is they're the ones that have the ability to help their child make those shifts, meaning they can help their child regulate their strong emotions. We know that from a neuroscience standpoint, children are developing their emotion regulation circuitry, and the younger the child, the less adept they are, so to speak, the less skilled they are at regulating their emotions. So when we have a client, and most of us have children on our caseloads who struggle with emotion regulation and sometimes really are dysregulated a lot and really intense and really overwhelming, what becomes clear to me is that the child is not able to use their parent for that co-regulation process to really develop and strengthen that emotion regulation circuitry. And for a variety of reasons, children may have emotion regulation problems biologically and maybe trauma history or different things like that. The key, though, is parents are in that child's life every single day. Typically, if we're talking about like a child that lives with their parent, or even foster parents, or even when parents are separated and divorced, those parents in the two different households, those parents are still the therapeutic agents of change for that child. They're the ones that have the ability to help that child in the moment, in real time, so to speak, learn skills and use support in order to deal with the different challenges that come up in life. We also know that that attachment relationship plays a significant role in helping a child develop a sense of identity, their self-concept, helping them to understand and about relationships, about other people, and how to navigate all of those things. Parents can help with that process. Parents play a role in a child's development of themselves, my mouth isn't working, their sense of self. And is the world safe or not safe? How do I navigate through the world? So if we're thinking about that, then actively involving parents in the change process means, as a therapist, you're going to need to develop that strong therapeutic rapport with your parents, the parents of the child that are coming in, because as you navigate through that change process, you need to have that strong therapeutic rapport with parents to help them learn the skills, to collaborate with them, to be in partnership with them. The goal is that they will leave the treatment process with their child successfully, having skills, using that attachment capability to help their child navigate through life for the rest of their child's life. That's the opportunity that you have for creating deep healing in the life of that child and also in the life of that family. Because here's how I look at it. I am a tiny little part of my client's life. I always hope to be a really good, positive part for that tiny bit of time that I'm in their life. Family members, parents are going to be in the life of that child, hopefully for the rest of their life. So being able to facilitate change and facilitate that therapeutic agent of change relationship between parent and child, to me, is going to make sure that that child has a support system in place and builds resiliency for the child for the rest of their life. And I look at it as, when we make that change in the family, that actually makes a change for generations to come. And so to me, really recognizing the importance of parents in the change process means then you're going to create an intentional plan and have an intentional way of thinking about that treatment process that's going to involve the parents. And for me, that means it's more than just that 5-minute check-in at the end of the treatment, at the end of the therapy session, because you don't have the ability to have as much impact just in that short period of time. And there are so many other things involved. It's in the waiting room. What is the child hearing? Are you really developing that therapeutic rapport with parents? So those times when you may need to challenge parents a little bit, that you have that therapeutic rapport, that they'll trust you, but they're not going to trust you until they know that you can help them, that you've built that safety with the parents, and that you care within a professional and therapeutic framework, of course, and knowing that you care and you can help them get through that process in a caring and compassionate and skilled way is really important for parents to know if we want them to be able to engage and trust us to make the changes that you're going to be asking them to make. And so all of that really comes down to what's your clinical lens, kind of coming back to the way that you think about the role of parents in the treatment process. And if you are looking at the child from an environmental standpoint, from a holistic standpoint, then you know that the child exists within a family system. So that's the context. And if that's the context, what's the role of parents in there? And you're looking at it through that lens, looking at the child within that system. I look at families within a family system, but also attachment and neuroscience lens. So if that's the lens that I'm using, then the way in which I build that rapport with parents is based on that lens. The way in which I work with them through challenging parts of the treatment, because change is hard, it will get challenging, and we have to be able to hold that for the family, for the parents, for the child, in order to help them through that process. In the end, though, they're the ones making the change. I provide that kind of container to help them make those changes that I'm asking them to make, because I know it's what they need in order to help them get through the process. I do that, though, in collaboration and partnership with parents, because I want them to be the expert, so to speak, for their child, not me. In the end, parents need to be the experts for their child and feel empowered and confident to do that. And that's part of that other lens that I look at for why parents need to be involved, and the way in which I kind of navigate through that process with them. So that is it for today in a nutshell, really. Um, the way in which we work with children and integrate parents has the capacity to create much more successful outcomes more often than not for all of the clients on your caseload. So for me, the takeaways for you, I hope, for today would be that maximizing those positive treatment outcomes means that you are developing a framework and a way of thinking about the role of parents, with a much greater role of parents in the treatment process. And then what does that look like? How are you going to be building that relationship with parents? And I would highly recommend that not be through email, and it not be through voicemails or texting. To make real impact, you really need to get parents in sessions, at least with you, where you're meeting with them consistently, just with you, or you're planning on how you're going to use some attachment. I use attachment focused family play therapy. I did that training last week. And so using a framework to integrate maybe parent and child together, or the whole family, or maybe you're just meeting with parents alone without the child present, so that you have that space where you can talk things through. So and if you're thinking about it, the role of parents, and it's really important. One of the lenses I like to use is dialectical behavior therapy, like a DBT lens, in which I love that dialectic in DBT of acceptance and change. acceptance is my clients are doing the best that they can, and the change part being they can do better. So that's kind of the way in which I hold it, using an attachment and neuroscience lens within family systems, that acceptance and change, which my clients' parents are doing the best that they can. And I do believe that. And they can do better, which is why they're coming. They're coming because they need you to help them to do that. And using that lens of how parents are going to be involved through whatever theoretical framework you are using, whatever that is, what does that look like for parent involvement? And then how are you communicating that to parents and facilitating that change? So that is it for today. I would love hear your ideas for what you do to incorporate parents in there. What are some of your challenges that you've experienced in the change process? If you're interested, I do have a training coming up. I have an online training coming up if you need some help with that. It's called Parents in the Play Therapy Process. It's a 2.5-hour online training, so packed full of helping you get clear on your expectations, helping you even come up with a plan and have a lens using that plan for even challenging clients. We'll look at some of the ways to engage parents, and then how can you fit that into the way in which you are providing services. So 2.5 hours online, Parents in the Play Therapy Process, coming up on Saturday, June 25th, next month. If you're interested, I'm going to put a link to the training in the comments, or you can go to my website, which is rrhcounseling.com/courses. So if you need a link to the training, feel free to send me a message and I'll send you a link. Otherwise, go check out my website, and I will see you next time. Bye.